Huh. 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 ha, ha, ha.
In the height of emotion, it's not always easy to stop and think things through. But if you'll just slow down the rush and pressure of your feelings a little, then judgment has a better chance to take hold and guide you away from wrong behavior. When you can rely on judgment rather than emotion to rule your behavior, as you did tonight, then you'll really be grown up. I can help by talking things over with you and giving suggestions, but you'll have to work out your own best way to make emotions work for you and not against you.
Hi.
Hi.
I'd just like to say I'm sorry about what happened last Saturday. It wasn't because I think of you as that kind of girl or anything like that. It's just that, I don't know. You're so terrific, and we'd been together all evening, and I just don't know what happened to me.
It was just as much my fault as it was yours. I shouldn't have stayed out so late anyway.
You're the nicest girl I've ever met, and we have so much fun together that I'd sure hate to ruin everything.
So would I.
Okay, now, is everything just about finished? The last spectacular issue of this year's Signpost has to be ready for the lucky students of Central High the day after tomorrow. Mary, how's that literary page shaping up?
It's not very spectacular. One story and one poem, and that's all.
Stu?
Just the pictures.
Yeah, we need more pictures, don't we?
Drawings would be cheaper. You know, if Eileen were still here, we'd be set. Oh, she could whip up some great little cartoons in no time.
Poor Eileen. She's probably so busy looking after the baby, she's forgotten she could ever draw.
What, have they had the baby already?
Sure, 5 months after the wedding. How's that for a shotgun affair, eh?
Stu, don't be so crude.
I feel kind of sorry for Fred. He always wanted to be a lawyer.
Yeah. Now I guess he's got to keep any job just so he can look after Eileen and the baby.
Eileen was a real good friend of mine. Was I surprised when she left school? Gee. And then when she got married. Imagine marrying someone who has to marry you.
Well, this isn't solving our picture problem.
Hey, Terry, I got it. Eileen had a whole bunch of cartoons we didn't use last year. I bet we could use some of those.
Why didn't you think of that?
Just stupid, I guess.
Okay, everybody, same time tomorrow afternoon. Gotta rush through the proof reading, and then we're finished.
Yeah, until the party. It's one of us to let us use your house, Terry.
Let's get the paper out before we start thinking of...
When Bobby could not be aroused from the state of shock he was in, everyone piled into the car and raced to Constable Walraven's house for help. Walraven took one look at Bobby, arranged a police escort, and sent them on to the hospital in Texarkana.
What do you think's wrong with it? He hasn't said a thing on the car on the way in here. Get some moves, hasn't said a word. The police has got it funny. Think you'll be all right?
Let us check him, and we'll let you know. Let's let you see on the 40. I think you better start an outlet.
He's in a state of shock.
Bobby recovered swiftly, and the Fords and Turners moved away. They don't plan on coming back. What the creature was after inside the Ford house is perhaps the biggest mystery of all. I was thinking about it today when I decided to drive out to our old home place, now run down and abandoned. Standing out in this field, it all comes rushing back. And an icy tingle starts down my spine when I recall that terrible, lonesome cry. It was so long ago that it seems incredible the creature is still out there, somewhere, right this minute, maybe even watching me. Of course, you may not believe that, or any of this story. You may think the whole thing is a hoax, and that's your privilege. But if you're ever driving down in our country along about sundown, keep an eye on the dark woods as you cross the Sulphur River bottoms, and you may catch a glimpse of a huge, hairy creature watching you from the shadows. Yes, he's still here. And you know, I'd almost like to hear that terrible cry again, just to be reminded that there is still a bit of wilderness left, and there are still mysteries that remain unsolved, and strange, unexplained noises.
This is where the story plays, a world on which we seldom gaze. Page from the book of yesterday, birds and beasts and wind and water, here beneath the bright blue sky. No man's smoke blinds the eagle's eye, and things that crawl or swim or fly, eat and breed and live and die. Here the Sulphur River flows, rising when the storm cloud blows. And this is where the creature goes, safe within a world he knows. Perhaps he dimly wonders why, is there no other such as I? To touch, to love before I die, to listen to my lonely cry. Where he searches, where he goes, this, of course, nobody knows. But once you've heard his lonely cry, you can guess the reason why. For whether he's a beast or man, what drives him wandering across the land, his love for others of his clan, a loneliness he cannot stand. He dimly wonders why, is there no other such as I? To touch, to love before I die, listen to my lonely cry.
boys think about going turkey hunting this year?
I
think we ought to go.
Mr. Willie, my mom wants me to ask you, would you come down to our house? There's some kind of wild man down there in the woods by the creek.
Now, boy, I want you to go back down there and tell your mama there ain't a thing in the world to be afraid of. I'll come down there tomorrow and check it out. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Thanks, sir.
You know, that's the third time that old lady sent that kid up here to tell me there's a big old hairy monster down there in my field. I guess I'll have to get down there tomorrow and see about it.
I was 7 years old when I first heard him scream. It scared me then, and it scares me now. This is Fouke, Arkansas. I grew up here. The population was about 350 when I was a boy. It still is. Fouke is way down in the southwest corner where Arkansas joins Texas and Louisiana. If you've ever driven from Shreveport to Texarkana, you passed right through Fouke, even if you don't remember seeing it. Aside from homes, Fouke has several stores, a couple of gas stations, a post office and school, garage and motel, and 2 cafes where the men folks stop by for coffee and conversation on the fish they've caught, or the duck, quail, squirrel, or deer they've hunted. Fishing and hunting take up a lot of almost everybody's time. Maybe Smoky Crabtree, who lives way back down on the edge of the bottoms, will tell about a mink or beaver he or his son Travis caught. raises beef cattle and traps part-time and works as a pipeline welder when the good jobs come along. Travis walks and paddles for miles every morning, running his trap lines before school starts. Most of the people who live around Fouke are farmers or ranchers. This country's rich and fertile, plenty of grass and water. Our land is veined with a great network of branches, creeks, river, and lakes. Fouke is a right pleasant place to live until the sun goes down. That day in the store, Willie Smith didn't believe me when I told him about a wild, hairy creature in the woods. He believes me now.
And he ran on east, jumped over the fence, just seemed like he just sort of pushed it down with his left hand, just stepped over. It was wounded and was holding that right chest. It had that right hand on his chest all the time that it was in sight. Maybe if it hadn't been hurt pretty badly, why, it might have run on all four legs. I don't know. But it wasn't. It was running on two legs at all times. That was about all I saw of the thing.
Something came through here last night and killed my two prize shoats. Found one of them lying right here with deep gashes and cuts in him, and his tongue was hanging out. Looked like something had strangled him. I keep them down here by the creek in this pen. And whatever it was, got in the pen, lifted both them 200-pound hogs over the fence. I couldn't find no place where they'd been dragged under. I couldn't find no tracks, so I figured whatever it was came and left traveling up and down that creek. Not knowing what had killed them hogs, I just threw them away. I carried them way off out there in the bushes so the smell wouldn't get back up the house there. Next day, got up and looked out there and thought it kind of funny, not seeing any buzzards circling or anything. So came down here and both hogs were gone. That thing, whatever it was, must have come back and the grass wasn't even disturbed where the hogs was. What kind of thing can pick up 200-pound hogs and walk off with them?
I doubt if you could find a lonelier, spookier place in this country than down around Boggy Creek. It twists and winds its way across the Fouke countryside, widening and narrowing, sheltering within its thickly wooded banks a multitude of creatures that run, fly, swim, creep, and crawl. Eventually, Boggy empties into Days Creek and flows onward into the Sulphur River. Heavy rainfall half the year causes our creeks and rivers to flood and spread over wide sections of densely thicketed and forested bottomland. In the Sulphur River bottoms, the water spreads out for miles across the bottomland, a lot of which is so densely thicketed that only a few hunters and trappers have the skill to make their way deep into this wild, swampy country. A lot of people believe the creature prowls back in here most of the time, but every now and then, drawn to civilization like a moth to flame, he creeps out about dusk. These nighttime visits have set off waves of terror around Fouke for over 15 years. What in the world is this creature? Where did he come from? And what does he eat? Are questions I've heard discussed a 1,000 times around winter fires and on hot summer evenings. When the creature, whom the newspapers quickly named the Fouke Monster, was first seen, he didn't seem to make any special effort to hide from people. At least Fred Crabtree, a farmer who hunted a lot, had that opinion.
Just didn't look like anything I'd ever seen. I thought at first it might be some kind of a wild man. I couldn't tell all that hair just what it was. I changed my shells and my shotgun from squirrel shot to my buckshot. More for my protection than anything else. If I'd have had my rifle, I believe I could have knocked him down easy. But I doubt if I would have. Because I kept thinking, it's just a chance. Might be a man. And if I'd have shot that thing, it turned out to be a man, I'd have had to live with that the rest of my life.
Although he was never sure, Fred got the impression the creature had been washing his feet in the icy water. A few months later, James Crabtree was squirrel hunting, only a short distance from the spot where Fred Crabtree had seen him.
I've spent a lot of my life in these woods, and there was something strange about that evening that I couldn't put my finger on it. It was just a feeling I had. There didn't seem to be as many birds and little small animals out as usual. In fact, they seemed mighty scarce. Plain sight, right out there in front of me. And it was some kind of thing that I've never come across before. Well, he stared at me for a little while, and he just slipped out of sight. I never saw him again.
Neither Fred Crabtree nor his Uncle James told anyone about their experience for years. They figured nobody would believe them. He always travels the creeks. That was one of the first things we figured out. This little branch feeds into Boggy Creek. The Searcy family lives here. Mary Beth Searcy is a teenage student. Right now, her older married sister and her baby are visiting. Her father's working in another town, and her younger brother is spending the night with a friend. So this evening, just the two girls, their mother, and the baby will be alone in this house. They have no phone, and the nearest neighbor is a mile or so across the woods.
Mary Beth? Mary Beth, would you please hang something over the window? There's a draft on the baby.
Yeah, okay. Just a minute.
Mary Beth, would you please hurry up? This draft's gonna give the baby a cold.
Okay, okay.
What's the matter with you? What happened? Tell me. Answer me.
It was a long night of terror. In a few minutes, Mary Beth was revived, and the three women, shaking in fear, freezing at every sound in the darkness, waited out the long hours of blackness. The baby slept peacefully through it all. Next morning, they would discover their dead kitten, completely unmarked. Apparently, she had simply been scared to death. The beauty of the bottoms under soft moonlight is transformed into dark, menacing danger. And the shadows of the night trigger your imagination into being places where possibly the creature is lurking, because you know he's out there somewhere. Like this 13-year-old boy, you've grown up as a woodsman and hunter. You never miss an opportunity to get yourself a deer. Yes, there's no doubt about it. The dogs are hot on the trail, chasing the deer in this direction. Later, they found 2-inch saplings broken down by the creature in his pain and fury. They saw crushed underbrush and bloodstains, which, in the excitement, no one thought to gather a sample of. But they did not find the creature. The terrifying stories of face-to-face encounters with the creature triggered the Bouck community into action. A big hunt was organized, with some of the best hunting dogs in Arkansas and Texas involved. They even brought in some famous dogs from Tennessee. I got to go along, and I still vividly recall how I was trembling with excitement. We had heard that earlier some other dogs had refused to trail the creature, cowing in fear and running back at the first whiff of his sour pig pen smell. But we were confident our dogs would get the job done.
Boy, dog, what it's all about. Yeah. Hey, Earl, where'd that old boy go brought them dogs in here? Yeah, I see that. Where'd you get that black tan, Frank? That old good boy, he's out of that litter by that old long-nosed Dick Willie. Pretty good dog, too. Listen, when old Henry and Red Dog cross this trail, there won't be no doubt it's him.
While several groups hunted on foot, others scouted designated areas on horseback. While we made our way along the dirt road he had been crossing, the men on horseback swept across the woodlands along the creek areas. About this time, our dog struck his trail where he'd crossed the road.
They found his trail. Go get him. Attaboy, trail him now. Get him, Billy.
You've never seen a more embarrassed and angry group of dog owners. Not a one of these famous hunting dogs would trail the creature's scent. They whined, tucked their tails, and came running back, obviously scared. I was sure disappointed. Despite the failure of the dogs to trail the creature, several groups of hunters kept going far into the night. Later, we got word that one hunting party had got the creature to scream angrily back at a wounded rabbit call, but moved deeper into the forest when they tried to get closer. The hunters were interested in plunging into thick woods in pitch darkness, knowing he was out there. Often I've tried to imagine how the creature must feel, since his very appearance and the sounds he makes frightened us. our immediate reaction was to try to kill him. I suppose if a strange-looking creature from another world showed up, he'd get the same reception. Actually, at first, the creature didn't try to harm anybody. But now, after being hunted and hurt, he suddenly disappeared. So far as we know, he wasn't seen again for 8 years. Where did he go? Well, we believe he simply headed back deeper and deeper into the bottoms, beyond the reach of men. Only the alligator and wolf, crane and possum, and 1,000 other wild creatures heard his occasional lonely cries ringing out over his watery domain.
This is where the story plays, a world on which we seldom gaze, a page from the book of yesterday, birds and beasts and wind and water, here beneath a bright blue sky, no man's more blind than the eagle's eye, and things that crawl or swim or fly, feed and breed and live and die.
Seasons passed. Summers into falls, winters into springs, and somewhere in the remote wilderness of the bottoms, the creature spent his days.
Sulphur River flows, rising when the storm cloud blows, and this is where the creature goes, safe within a world he knows. Perhaps he dimly wonders why there is no other such as I, to touch, to love before I die, to listen to my lonely cry.
None of us Falk boys would admit it, but for a long time, knowing the creature might be around had put a damper on our pack trips back into the wilderness. But as time passed, and stories and conversation about the Falk monster died down, teenage boys again began to go off on long camping trips in the bottoms. Travis Crabtree is the kind of fearless outdoor kid that would have gone anyway, even knowing the creature was around. There's nothing Travis likes better than to spend the weekend camping on one of the hilltop islands created by high water deep in the bottomland.
Hey, Travis Crabtree, wait a minute for me. Let's go back in the bottom, back where the fish are biting, where all the world's inviting, and nobody sees the flowers bloom. Crabtree. Do you see what I see on the gentle winds of morning? A million birds are singing like the bells of heaven ringing, and nobody sees the flowers bloom but me. Drop me on a patch of land, never stepped upon my man, where the crystal water flows deep, while the falcon flies high across the yellow-eyed sky. Lord, ain't it great to be free? Hey, Travis Crabtree, it's the right life for me. Roaming alone in the bottom, while the birds and beasts are crying, because the sun is dying, and nobody sees the flowers bloom but me. And nobody sees the flowers bloom but me. And nobody sees the flowers bloom but me.
When he's down in the bottoms, Travis always stops off for a visit and a cup of coffee with Herb Jones. Herb Jones is a man who likes a lot of privacy. He's been living alone in these bottoms for the past 20 years.
Well, Travis.
Travis always enjoys these visits with Herb,
Herb, how you been
and
doing?
never fails to bring him tobacco and other supplies. Herb can spin yarns for hours about his experiences with the wild creatures of the bottomland. Herb tells Travis to be on the lookout for a big old wild boar with double curled tusks he spotted a day or two earlier. Herb limps because he once accidentally shot part of his foot away in a boating accident. Although he was all alone, he made it out of the bottoms to a doctor.
Yeah, I guess kind of like a rheumatism. I've been living down here by myself for a long time. About 14 miles by boat from my place to the nearest road. And it's a pretty good walk to town. Them Crabtree boys, especially that Travis, always drop by to see me when they come hunting or fishing. They always bring me tobacco and sugar and stuff like that. Even a bottle of wine every once in a while. Did you notice my bottle tree on the way in? I use them bottles as floats on my trot lines. I catch some mighty big catfish and buffalo on them lines. Here's an old crane flies over every day. Looks at my place. I don't know what he's looking for. Once you get to know these bottoms, you never lack for something to do. People always ask me why I stay down here. I tell them I stay because I like it better here than I would anywhere else. Looks like they could figure that out for themselves. Another thing. People always ask me, have I seen the Fouke monster? Let me tell you something. There ain't no such thing. I've been living here in these bottoms for better than 20 years. I ain't never seen or heard no monster.
What was that?
I don't know, but let's get out of here.
The creature was back. Once again, the lure of civilization had brought him out of the wilderness. Soon, newspaper headlines would herald the return of the Fouke monster, and people would get together around Fouke to relate the latest rumors on the creature. Every dead animal found in the forest was blamed upon him. This dog and others found dead might well be his victims. Excitement in the community reached a new peak when a farmer named O.H. Kennedy discovered these strange three-toed footsteps in Willie Smith's bean field. Radio, newspaper, and television coverage resulted in nationwide publicity.
There it is. Must not be over 4 inches wide.
Mr. Kennedy, you say you found these tracks late Sunday. Now, was that late yesterday afternoon?
Yes, sir. Just before sundown. My wife and I went out for a ride. She's been feeling poorly lately. And we decided to stop by the bean field to see if the ground was too wet to plow. We called Willie Smith right away.
Mr. Kennedy, do you think this creature could be a Sasquatch?
Sasquatch? I don't believe I know what that is, sir.
Well, the Sasquatch was the Indians' word for a legendary giant tribe of very shy people. They live mostly in the woods up in the Pacific Northwest.
Well, I didn't see anybody. All I've seen, sir, is these tracks.
Well, now, doesn't the Sasquatch have a normal 5 toes? This thing here has only 3 toes.
Yes, and the adult Sasquatch footprint is bigger, too. It's 18 inches long on the average.
Could these be gorilla tracks?
No, I don't think it's a gorilla. A gorilla has 5 toes and very seldom moves upright on 2 legs for very long. This thing had had to drop down on all 4s to travel this far.
What about a orangutan? This is the same thing people around here have reported seeing over the past few years. He's reddish-brown. That's the same color as the orangutan.
Well, I don't think this could be orangutan. The number of the toes are wrong.
Excuse me, Mr. Kennedy, you spent a lot of time working in this field, right? Did you ever see tracks like this any here before?
No, sir. I can't say as I have. There's a lot of fresh animal tracks around this field all the time. Deer and wolf and bobcat and all kinds of other tracks, but I've never seen anything like these before.
Well, Mr. Kennedy, did you ever hear anything out of the ordinary down here?
Well, I've heard some pretty peculiar things out here, but I've never seen nothing unusual out of this before.
I wonder what moves the creature to pick a particular patch of woods and return to it again and again. These woods, next to the bean field, must be one of his favorite haunts.
Oh, and what I heard, I guess it was what I didn't hear that made it kind of spooky. Even when that tractor's running and you can't hear nothing, you get a funny feeling that something's wrong. And I wasn't sure, but I think I'd hear a low growl or a hoot or a grunt or something from back at the trees, and you know there's something out there's watching you. And there's some kind of animal hanging around this field, all right. And he ain't no animal that from this part of the country.
He always travels Boggy Creek,